I'm trying to hold still.
In December, Indigenous hunter Frank Wildchild ventured into the frozen mountains near Nordegg, Alberta, with his friend Donald Bigcalf for what should have been a routine winter hunting trip. What Frank captured on camera that night would become one of the most disturbing pieces of footage ever recorded in the Canadian wilderness. Before moving forward, do not forget to subscribe the channel. The two friends had been tracking deer through deep snow when Donald suddenly went missing.
Sounds like something's hacking away at a tree. I'm getting down.
Frank grabbed his camera and headed into the darkness to search for him. The temperature was dropping fast. The snow was waist-deep in places. He did not find Frank near the tree stand, and that's when he heard it.
Dawn? Dawn? Shit, man.
Frank turned his camera toward the sound. Something was out there. He called Don's name and did not get any response then. The screams were becoming relentless. Frank's truck also broke down and refused to start. He stepped out and ran toward the noise. Something was out there. Something big. At first, he thought it was a bear, but the sounds didn't fit. They were too deliberate, too controlled. The voices echoed through the forest, growing louder and closer. Frank stopped, trying to make sense of what he was hearing. Whatever was making those noises wasn't any animal Frank recognized. Along the way, he spotted massive footprints in the snow, far too large to belong to a human. The tracks led deeper into the forest, away from the trails, away from any sign of help, and they were fresh. Frank kept following them, still calling out for Dawn. His camera light barely cut through the thick darkness ahead. Then he saw something. That's when he found it. It was a severed head, not human, but animal. Yet the brutality was unmistakable. Whatever had done this possessed incredible strength. The head had been torn clean off. Frank's breathing turned shaky as panic set in. He spun around, sweeping his camera light across the trees. Now, something was out there, circling him. He could hear it moving through the brush, always staying just beyond the edge of his light. He first fires warning shots into the ground. He shot another and that's when he saw it.
Dang, it's stalking me, whatever it is.
He was standing between the trees. For a moment, everything went still. Frank froze where he stood. The creature didn't move, it just watched him in silence. Then, without warning, it lunged forward and attacked. The beast attacked Frank and dragged his boy through the forest high onto a snowy ridge. The camera caught quick flashes, snow, darkness, and something massive looming over him. Frank tried to get up, but a heavy force dragged him down. He was semi-conscious. He felt himself being pulled deeper into the forest, away from his snowmobile and any chance of rescue. His camera kept recording, bouncing against his chest, capturing fragments of the forest floor, blood on his hands, and the huge shadow moving ahead. His body was thrown into a shelter littered with animal remains. The beast seemed to think he was dead and left the area, giving Frank a chance to escape. As his camera tilted upward, it captured something beyond imagination. He was inside a shelter, a nest, but not just any nest. Bones were scattered everywhere. Animal carcasses lay in different stages of decay, their flesh rotting and torn apart. The air was thick with the stench of death. This was not a random attack. This was the creature's lair, its feeding ground. Frank realized the horrifying truth. He had been brought here like prey, something the beast planned to keep for later. Terrified by what he had seen, Frank ran. He stumbled through the dark forest, every sound behind him making his heart race faster. Branches tore at his clothes as he forced his way downhill, desperate to escape. After what felt like hours, he reached the river valley, the same place where he and Dawn had been hunting earlier that day. That's when Frank realized something that made his blood run cold. Don's backpack was there inside the nest, but Donald himself was nowhere to be seen. A wave of dread washed over Frank as he realized what that meant. He had to move. Now. He grabbed Donna's pack and searched through it with trembling hands, finding a flare gun inside. Quickly, he armed it. Then he ran. And later, his camera captured one final, chilling moment when he stumbled upon something chilling, an above-ground gravesite. Lying dead on top of it was a juvenile bipedal beast, smaller than the one that attacked him, but just as terrifying. Proof these creatures were real, and that there were more of them. Frank made it out of the forest that night, injured but alive. Dawn was never found. To this day, Frank's footage remains one of the most compelling pieces of evidence that something truly massive lives in the Alberta wilderness. Tell us in comments, what would you do if you were in place of Frank?
Okay, I'm trying to hold still.
They say the human brain has a gaze detection system, that prickle on the back of your neck when someone is staring at you. But in the deep woods, that feeling isn't just paranoia. And if you are alone, it's a warning. That's what happened with Dee Adventures. Dee is a seasoned investigator. Her content focuses on what she calls hider-seeker tactics. The theory that these forest entities don't just hide, they stalk, observe, and sometimes they close the distance. On this particular night in the Ohio woods, she was alone, but realized she wasn't the one doing the hunting. She was being watched from the moment she stepped off the trail. It started with small, unexplainable details. In a section of the forest with no nut-bearing trees, Dee found a log covered in freshly cracked shells. Something had physically brought them there to eat while watching the trail.
Now notice there's no nut trees. None of these are nut trees. These have been physically brought over here. And they're all over the ground. And the shells are all cracked and something sat here and ate them.
As the light failed, the psychological pressure began to mount. Later, the silence was broken. Dee began to sense a figure moving just beyond the reach of her light. Standing alone in the growing dark, she did the one thing most people wouldn't. She called out to it.
Mister. Who's up there? Okay. Mister. Who's up there? Okay. Hello. Something get thrown at me. Whoa! What's that over there? It's moving.
This thing is constantly changing position within seconds.
Okay, I'm gonna knock, because I'm hearing movement. Whatever that thing was over there, that black thing, it sounds like something moving over there. I might have you too far zoomed in. Stop. Okay, I'm gonna watch behind me. I'm gonna have you guys watch there, watch.
As the sun began to set, the atmosphere shifted. Dee began to experience visual anomalies that the camera caught, even when her own eyes couldn't see them, a strange, shimmering distortion in the trees.
Where was it? Let me find it. It's like one of those right there. I swear it was. I was looking at that. And something jerked over there. Hold on a minute. Is that freaking tree moving? Where'd it go? Woo! It looks like an oil sheen. Right there, like, I don't know, maybe it's just the way the camera's looking, but it looks like waves of, like, you know when you see it on a road, an oil spot. Okay, I'm not getting no knocks back.
She decided to move out from there while walking. She looks back if she is being followed, and her threat was real she encountered, turned from curious to terrifying. Dee realized that whatever was out there was no longer keeping its distance.
Whoa, look! Where's it at? How do I get it? Fucking way. Dude! Look. Where'd it go? Look at him go. Sorry. Okay, I'm trying to hold still. No! Okay, no. Where'd he go? Someone behind me, man.
In that moment, the adrenaline hit. Dee spotted a dark figure moving with impossible speed through the thicket, but as she tried to track it, she felt a cold realization. The movement in front of her was a distraction. There was something else standing directly behind her. Dee managed to make it back to her vehicle, but the footage remains a haunting reminder of the hider-seeker tactics often attributed to these forest entities. She went in looking for answers, but she left with the terrifying knowledge that she had been followed every step of the way. In the deep woods, you are never as alone as you think. What do you think Dee saw in those trees? Let us know in the comments below, and please help us to reach our target 500 subscribers.
Твою мать.
In 2014, experienced hunter Sergei ventured alone into Siberia's remote western Sion Mountains for a solo hunting expedition. He was 60 miles from the nearest village, deep in territory the locals warned was bad. What stalked him through the darkness that night remains unexplained to this day. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel. Sergei had been hunting the Siberian wilderness for years, documenting his expeditions on his YouTube channel. He was after Manurian wapiti, a species of elk native to the region, and had tracked them to a particularly isolated area deep in the taiga forest. As darkness fell, Sergei climbed into his tree blind and settled in to wait. The forest around him was completely silent, except for the occasional rustle of wind through the trees. He kept his camera rolling, expecting a routine night of hunting. Everything seemed normal at first.
В общем, смеркается. Поэтому заранее нужно посмотреть, где какой пень торчит, запомнить местность. Вон с той стороны, слева от меня, тропа звериная к Солонцу тянется. Примерно со стороны избушки. Там избушка заброшенная, уже старая. Ориентир приметный.
Around 1 o'clock in the morning, something shattered the silence. Sergei's camera captured the sounds clearly. They were metallic, rhythmic, and completely out of place in the middle of a forest 60 miles from any human settlement. The knocking persisted, echoing through the trees with an eerie regularity.
Твою мать.
Sergei knew every animal call in this region, the roar of tigers, the bugling of elk, the howls of wolves, but this was something different, something he couldn't identify. The metallic knocking continued for nearly half an hour, never stopping, never changing its rhythm. Then suddenly, it shifted. The sounds became different, no longer distant metallic clanging, but something closer, something moving through the underbrush. Sergei's breathing quickened. Whatever was making those sounds was no longer staying in one place. It was moving, and it seemed to be circling his position. At this point, Sergei made the decision to end his hunt and head back to camp. But as he climbed down from his tree blind, the noises intensified. Something was tracking him. Every time Sergei moved, the sounds adjusted, staying parallel to his path through the forest. Whatever was out there knew exactly where he was. Realizing the situation was becoming critical, Sergei made a tactical decision. He climbed back into a tree, taking the high ground to defend himself if necessary.
Там тоже бурелом. Там огромное лежит. Ручей поет, вот давай как речки. Давай, 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 давай.
From his position in the tree, Sergei could hear the creature, or whatever it was, circling below him. The sounds were getting closer with each pass. It wasn't backing down. It wasn't leaving. The sounds are getting eerie, strange, and made him scared. Sergei raised his rifle and fired a warning shot into the darkness. Then he heard something that made his blood run cold. A scream ripped through the forest in response to his gunshot. It wasn't a bear. It wasn't a tiger. It was unlike any animal vocalization Sergei had ever heard in all his years hunting these woods. The sound stopped for a moment. Sergei waited, rifle ready, scanning the darkness with his camera light. 1 hour passed in tense silence. Then the noises came back, louder than before, closer than before. Whatever had been stalking, Sergei hadn't given up. If anything, it had become more determined. The sounds circled his tree faster now, with more aggression. Sergei fired multiple shots into the darkness, trying to drive the creature away. The intensity was escalating. Sergei was trapped in his tree, unable to see his stalker, firing blindly into the night while something circled below him in the pitch-black taiga. Then, finally, silence fell. The sounds didn't return. But the silence that followed, alone 60 miles from help, Sergei waited through the longest night of his life, tense at every movement, unsure if his stalker was still there. When the footage surfaced online, theories exploded. Viewers speculated wildly about what he encountered that night. Was it another hunter who, in the isolation of the wilderness, had become territorial or mentally unstable? Was it a shaman performing rituals in the forest? Could it have been something cryptid, a creature unknown to science? Sergei survived the night, but the mystery remains unsolved. Whatever lives in those remote mountains, 60 miles from civilization, it's still out there. And it doesn't want to be found. Muskrat from Muskrat Outdoors and his wife, Cindy, had set out to check one of their bear bait stations, just a normal outing to see if anything had hit the bait and to swap SD cards on the cameras.
Cindy and I went up to the bear bait to check on the bear bait, see if anything had been there or not, and check the cameras. There's been a bear there. Most of the bait was gone. Barrel was about half full, so we refilled it.
They realized something had been feeding there. Most of the bait gone, the barrel half empty. But instead of heading straight home, they decided to drive a little deeper into the backcountry, just to see what they might find beyond the ridge. Not far down an old, narrow trail, they stumbled onto something neither of them had ever seen before.
I came across something here extremely strange. I'm not really sure what to make of this. We found an old trail here. We walked down the trail, and here hanging in this tree here, right underneath that pole, is what I thought was a barrel that was probably used as a martin box. What it turned out to be is an old milk can. And stranger yet, the lid was on it. I pulled the lid off of it, and look at this. What in the world? Why would anybody... That's a pine marten.
Hanging from a tree limb was a rusted old milk can, its lid still sealed tight. At first glance, Muskrat thought it might have been an old marten box, the kind trappers used decades ago. But when he lifted the lid, what he found inside stopped him cold. Inside were animal pelts, a pine marten, a coyote, maybe more. Every one of them looked to have been skinned, stretched, and fleshed, completely prepared, just like a trapper would before selling their furs. The deeper Muskrat dug, the stranger the discovery became.
This is really strange. I don't understand any of this. This old milk can here that was hanging in this tree, it was right here. Up there's probably the wire it was hanging on. Just kind of up underneath this tree here.
There wasn't just one animal in there. By the time he emptied the can, there was a fox, 2 badgers, and 3 marten, with one of the smaller ones stuffed inside the fox's body cavity. The whole thing looked deliberate, placed and packed with care, and then left behind, sealed up and forgotten.
But they're all stretched, fleshed, dried, ready for sale, stuffed into a milk can tied to a tree. In the middle of nowhere. This spot here is probably, I'm guessing, 25 miles from the closest town or house.
Muskrat guessed they'd been ready for market worth around $100, even in a bad fur year. But instead of sitting in a trapper's shed, they were tied to a tree in the middle of nowhere, at least 25 miles from the nearest town. Why would someone go through all that trouble, prepare all those pelts, and then just abandon them? Had the trapper planned to come back and never made it? Did something happen out there, something that kept him from returning? As they stood there in the silence of the woods, the questions only grew heavier. The workmanship showed experience. Each marten skinned with feet intact, each stretch tight and careful. Whoever did this wasn't careless or new to the craft. That only made the mystery worse.
The marten were skinned with the feet on. That's kind of time-consuming, getting those little toe bones out of there. We don't have that many badger in this area. Almost like you got them someplace else. Kind of creepy, actually.
Before leaving, Muskrat looked around and noticed something even more unsettling.
Okay, so this is just probably 100 yards, not even 100 yards up from where that barrel was with all the critters in it. Gotta be Sasquatch. Maybe Sasquatch killed that guy. Actually, this is kind of strange.
A short walk up from where the milk can hung stood a tangle of tree limbs, woven and locked together in a strange, almost geometric pattern. He'd seen tree structures like that in videos claiming evidence of Bigfoot, but he'd never paid them much attention until now. Some of the logs had been partly cut, as if someone had started collecting firewood, but the rest were arranged in an unnatural, crisscrossed pattern that didn't make sense.
Actually really kind of strange, but I don't know if I believe in the whole Bigfoot tree structure things, but this one is a little weird. Actually, somebody was cutting some of this up for firewood, but it's a very strange stack, the way they've got it all tangled in this tree.
It looked more like a deliberate construction, but by who or what was impossible to say. Back home, viewers who saw Muskrat's footage couldn't stop speculating. Some recalled local tales of missing trappers and hunters who'd vanished in the Ohio woods. Others said it matched the stories of people finding abandoned trap lines and half-collapsed shelters deep in the forest. Still, one detail stood out: that milk can. If whoever left it behind was in trouble, why take the time to hang it so neatly, with the lid sealed, as if protecting what was inside? Today, that same milk can rests in Muskrat's possession, cleaned and preserved, but the truth about who hid it and why they never came back still lies somewhere out there in the wild.
Better get ready. What in the world is that thing?
In December 2012, hunter Big Daddy Hoffman climbed into his deer stand in the North Carolina woods for what should have been a routine morning hunt. His camera was rolling as he settled in, scanning the forest floor below in complete silence. What his camera captured that morning would haunt him for the rest of his life. Big Daddy Hoffman runs a YouTube channel where he documents his hunting adventures across North Carolina. He had been hunting these woods for years, regularly posting videos of his hunts. He knew every trail, every clearing, every spot where deer like to move through at dawn. The morning was cold and still, the kind of morning where sound carries for miles and any movement stands out against the frozen landscape. Big Daddy kept his camera running, hoping to capture his hunt on film. Then something moved in the distance.
Something down there. It doesn't look like a deer.
Big Daddy's attention snapped to the forest floor below. Something was down there, moving through the trees about 50 yards away. At first, he thought it might be a deer moving through the underbrush. He raised his scope to get a better look, His camera still recording everything. But as he watched through his scope, something wasn't right. The way it moved was wrong. The shape was wrong. Deer don't move like that.
Better get ready. What in the world is that thing?
The figure moved again, and this time Big Daddy got a clear view through his scope. What he saw made his blood run cold. It was walking upright, not on 4 legs, like a deer or a bear. Upright, like a human. But it was massive, far too tall and broad to be a person. The proportions were completely wrong. The camera shook violently as the reality of what he was seeing hit him. Whatever this creature was, it was real, it was massive, and it was less than 50 yards away from his deer stand.
I've never seen anything like that before in my whole life.
Big Daddy didn't wait to see more. Every instinct told him to get out of that stand immediately. He grabbed his gear and climbed down from the stand as quickly as he could, his camera capturing the frantic descent. His heart was pounding. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold onto the ladder. The footage Big Daddy captured that December morning spread fast. Believers cited the creature's massive size, upright movement, and Big Daddy's raw fear as evidence of Sasquatch. Skeptics dismissed it as a bear or a distant person. To this day, the clip remains one of the most debated pieces of Bigfoot evidence. Was it Sasquatch or something else? Big Daddy thinks he knows. He's never gone back to confirm it. Engage in the video so we can build a community of our subscribers.
Uh-oh, one's running right at us. Right at us.
In this few seconds, a hunter's night goes from controlled to catastrophic. A 1,000-pound boar charges full speed through the darkness. What happens next is something most people will never witness. Before you skip, hit subscribe. You need to see how this started. But to understand what went wrong, you first need to know what night hunting is, and why hunters like Chris Robinson risk everything to do it. Through a thermal lens, the night becomes day. Animals glow white-hot against the cooler background. In Texas, that advantage was desperately needed. Feral hogs aren't native. They arrived centuries ago on Spanish ships. Today, there are millions of them across North America, destroying crops, contaminating water, spreading disease, killing livestock. Government culls about 90,000 coyotes a year to protect ranches. But hogs? They breed so fast, traditional hunting can't keep up. They're intelligent, they adapt, they hide. So hunters like Chris Robinson turn to thermal imaging. On this particular night, Chris wasn't hunting alone. Feral hogs move in groups, especially at night. They're looking for food. They're vulnerable when they're distracted. That's when a hunter strikes. Chris moved through the Texas darkness with his thermal scope to his eye. He was ready, or so he thought. Through the thermal scope, Chris spotted them a group of boars, multiple targets, multiple opportunities. He tracked the group, watching their heat signatures move through the darkness. Chris lined it up. Through the thermal scope, the animal glowed bright white. One clean shot. He fired. One down, but the group was still there. Chris steadied his aim. He breathed. He fired again. The shot connected. The boar stumbled. For a moment, Chris thought it was down. He thought the hunt was over. 2 successful shots, 2 kills, routine work. But he was wrong. What happens next is why hunters fear the darkness. The boar wasn't dead. It was injured, bleeding, in pain. And as any predator knows, a wounded animal is far more dangerous than a healthy one. This boar didn't run. It didn't hide in the darkness. It charged.
Stu? I think I'm out. Damn son of a gun. Uh-oh, one's running right at us. Right at us.
1,000 pounds of muscle, blood, and rage running directly at the man who shot it. Through the thermal scope, Chris watched the heat signature grow larger, closer. The boar was moving faster than anything that size should move. Chris had seconds to react. For the next seconds, the thermal scope becomes pure chaos. You see violent motion. You hear Chris's breathing, panicked now, not controlled. You hear the boar's squeals. The camera shakes violently. The scope loses focus. The boar is finally down dead or retreating deep into the Texas darkness. But here's what people don't understand. Wounded animals are unpredictable. They don't follow the rules of a clean hunt. They don't die when you think they should. They fight back when you assume they're finished. On that Texas ranch, Chris survived his mistake. But survival isn't victory. It's a second chance. They shot this brown bear from 470 yards. 3 bullets through the vitals. Then the rifle jammed. That wounded bear came straight down the mountain. Now, they were running for their lives. Before jumping into the whole story, do not forget to subscribe.
We've got a bear spotted. It's about 3 miles as the crow flies across the river. Probably about 5 miles to get to it.
It all started with Tana and Trevor, siblings hunting Alaskan brown bears along the coast. After days of glassing, they finally spot a massive boar 3 miles away across the river, lying in the snow, and decide to make the long trek.
Did you hit it? Oh, he's getting up. Here we go.
470 yards. First shot through the vitals. Second shot through the shoulder. Bear stumbles. Looks down. gets back up, and starts moving, but here, things starting getting serious. If you see, listen here closely, something looks stuck, and that is gun. Yes, the gun jammed after a couple of shots. The gun stopped working, and the bear starts getting close. The video shows the bear getting closer. Tana and Trevor is trying to fix the gun and thinks something is frozen, so they started blowing.
Please die.
What in the heck is going on?
Did you get a good shot?
I don't know, but I don't know why this thing will not go in. I've never seen it do that before.
So, they left no choice than run. Tana also revealed about the situation later.
So he would kind of like hunch and fall, and he was, spewing out blood, and we thought he was going to go down any second. He just probably needed a few more bullets in him, but we couldn't get the bolt to work. And he closed the distance fast. Right after you could start to see the video blur out is where he disappeared. So we were right up on this little knob, and it dipped down to where we couldn't see him, and then up on the hill where he was sliding down in the snow at us. It's pretty fast at that point. And as soon as he dipped down and we couldn't see him anymore, and he was less than 200 yards, and we knew that he had pinpointed us, both of our instincts said run. And so we left all of our gear. We grabbed the rifle, the bow, and Trevor had the pistol in a chest holster. And we just started running. And we're running and we're running and we're running. And I'm looking back, and Trevor looks back at me after about 100 yards of running, and he looks back and he holds his hand right here, and he's like, my pistol's gone. And it was just instant panic. It was almost like we're dead, And he looked around, and it had just fallen out, thankfully.
For this moment, both of them think they are dead. Then they spot the black handle barely sticking out of the snow. He grabs it, shoves it back into the holster, and they keep running.
And in that moment, I knew he was coming. I said, you gotta finish him. He's coming. And at that point, we just stood our ground, and I hid behind this rock, and he was right next to me. And I look up, and that bear comes right over the knob, right over our gear, pinpoints us, and just comes full bore. So in this gap of what is happening, this bear closes about 150 yards of distance in about 10 seconds. I'm helpless. The rifle's jammed. What's a bow gonna do? We have one pistol with 5 shots.
Tana intuition was right here, and then
I'm just in shock. I remember him running through the snow at me. I remember his huge, fluffy body just hitting the snow, and snow flying up around him. And the craziest thing about this whole experience is his mouth was not growling, He was so big, and just his lips were so huge that his mouth was just hanging open, drool was coming out of it. And so that 10-second gap, I remember seeing my life flash before my eyes.
Then it happens. Trevor hits the first shot and it missed, and Bear keeps coming, then another 3 shots at once. And then, at around 5 yards, he fires again. That final shot makes the bear turn and drop out of sight behind the rocks.
And as he got close, under 30 yards, is when Trevor started shooting, and he missed the first shot. The first shot nicked the rock right in front of his face as he was coming through the rocks, the cluster of rocks right at us. And then it was boom, 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 shot 3 times in him. And that made him turn. He had one more lunge, basically. He was 5 yards at that last shot. One more lunge before he came over the rock at us and on top of me or Trevor. I'm not sure which one he was choosing first. But that fourth shot turned him just enough to where then I was, for some reason, I don't know why, I just had my phone in my hand and I just pulled it up like this, and I got that last shot on video.
After the last shot, bear disappeared. They can't see it anymore, and they don't know if it is truly dead.
So, we just had this bear up there. It was bedded. This is its tracks and blood trail. We have handed off all of our stuff. We got down, took off running down there.
Trevor's the man. He saved our lives.
The bear 10 yards straight off.
Later, they side hill slowly back toward their gear, always looking around, ready to shoot again. In the distance, they finally see the bear lying still in the snow. It is over. When they measure the spot, they realize how close it came. The last shot was taken at about 5 yards. One more step, and that bear would have been on top of one of them.
It's nothing. Trevor's gonna make sure it's dead by walking up to it, poking it, and having a pistol in hand just in case. I almost died today. This thing came at us. Trevor ended up shooting it 5 yards away with a pistol. Oh my gosh, that was insane.
454.
I'm so thankful to be alive. We just could not believe it.
Okay, so this is a little sus. We're walking back. I see something that went over our tracks that we just laid not too long ago.
In the dead of night, 2 hunters entered Montana's Lewis and Clark National Forest, armed with rifles, spotlights, and night vision cameras. They were investigating reports from local woodcutters who claimed something was living in these mountains. Something that throws rocks and stalks people in the darkness. What they captured on camera that night would convince them those reports were true.
Are you rolling? Yeah. Gentlemen, are cryptids real? We're going to find out. We're in a location that has been known to have had a couple Bigfoot sightings. We're going to go up the trail right where the guy saw it, see if we can catch it ourselves. Let's go.
The 2 hunters run a cryptid investigation channel where they document their searches for unexplained creatures. They had heard multiple stories from loggers working in this area, reports of strange sounds, massive footprints, and rocks being thrown at people who ventured too deep into the forest. They decided to start their hunt at 3 in the morning, when the forest would be at its darkest and most active. Armed with rifles and powerful spotlights, they began walking the same trail where a woodcutter had reported being chased by something throwing boulders.
So we're walking along tracks of some kind out here. Can't really identify these because they've melted a bit too much, but there's definitely a lot of wildlife activity out here.
Almost immediately, they began finding signs that something was active in the area. The hunters froze. Something in the darkness ahead had just vocalized a sound neither of them could identify.
So the story goes, the woodcutter was walking along this trail and he heard some boulders and saw some rocks flying toward him. Bigfoot, we know, or at least we're told based on legend, like to warn people that they're in the area. So I'm looking up these steep hills to our left and right, just checking if there's any animals up there.
The hunter swept his spotlight across the steep hillsides on either side of the trail, checking for any sign of movement or eyeshine in the darkness above them.
No, we're going back. It's these. I see it on camera. Oh, the bobcat.
Oh, I see it.
Then they saw it. Their camera caught distinct eyeshine reflecting back from the darkness, 2 glowing eyes watching them from the tree line. The hunters debated what they were seeing. A bobcat? A deer? But what be a predatory animal lurking in the night? The lead hunter tried to calm his companion down, showing their weapons as reassurance. Despite the fear, they decided to push forward. Whatever had been watching them had disappeared into the forest, but they both felt the unmistakable sensation of being observed.
Okay, so this is a little sus. We're walking back. I see something that went over our tracks that we just laid not too long ago. Looks like it went up the hill there, so kind of interesting.
Then they made a disturbing discovery. Something had crossed their path after they had walked through just minutes earlier. The marks in the snow looked like something had been dragged, possibly an injured animal, or something with an unusual gait. The trail led up the steep hillside into the darkness.
So we're getting close. I can actually see the light from our cabin.
So close to camp, and yet
we are less likely to die. Oh, look at these. These rocks just fell. Look at that. Somebody was up there.
They were almost back at their cabin when it happened. Fresh rocks had just fallen from the hillside above them, the same behavior the woodcutter had reported. Something was up there in the darkness, directly above their position. The timing was too precise to be coincidence. Something had waited until they were passing directly below before dislodging those rocks. It was a warning, a territorial display. Exactly what the legend said Bigfoot does when it wants people to leave its territory. They hurried back to the cabin, knowing that whatever was up on that hillside could easily have thrown larger rocks if it wanted to. They had been warned. The next morning, the hunters returned to examine the area in daylight. What they found only deepened the mystery.
Alright, so it's day 2. We're going to go back up the trail in the daytime and see what we can find. Reviewing the footage last night in the cabin, I will say it was a little interesting. My camera guy and I both thought we saw a bobcat. I, of course, could have been primed to believe that based on what they told me, but it is a little weird. It definitely did not look like a deer when we were looking at it at night. Did we capture a shapeshifter? Did we capture a Wendigo on camera and it used its psychic abilities to change its corporeal form in camera view versus what the human eye saw? Possibly, I don't know.
Fresh tracks led directly toward their cabin tracks that had been made sometime during the night after they had gone inside. Something had approached their location in the darkness while they slept. Further down the trail, they found distinct large paw prints that seemed too big for a typical canine. The hunters decided to push past the point where they had turned back the previous night. The animal tracks continued up the entire trail, running parallel to their path.
Go where the Rizzlers are. So those are brand new, right? From yesterday to today?
finally clear footage. Was this a Wendigo taunting us during the day, knowing its transformation powers are limited? Was this a simple deer chilling on the mountainside? It's impossible to say for sure.
So we've continued on the trail. We're starting to round the mountainside now, and we can see that the trail kind of just keeps going.
Then, in broad daylight, they spotted something on the mountainside above them. They were spotted again. Was it really a deer, a Wendigo, or something else? The hunters never got definitive proof of what stalked them that night. But the evidence was undeniable. Fresh tracks crossing their footprints, rocks falling at the exact moment they passed below, eyes watching from the darkness, and something approaching their cabin while they slept. If it was just an animal, why did it follow them so deliberately? Why throw rocks as a warning? And why had the local woodcutters and loggers been reporting the exact same behavior for years? After one night in those mountains, the hunters understood something. They weren't alone out there, and whatever shares that forest with them doesn't want to be found. Some things are better left in the darkness. And more shocking encounters that people have captured while camping will pop up on your screen, so click right on it. What they encountered in the wilderness was nothing short of a horror show. For more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments what shocked you the most.